One of the most important shifts in recent years has been the growth of digital and online giving in China. These are based on apps, on digital systems that most Chinese have on their phones, accounted for most of the growth in individual giving in China in recent years. The Chinese philanthropic system is a heavily state-influenced, state-regulated system. But within that, there has been tremendous growth in giving around China for social services, for charitable services, for health, for education, things like that. And this growth of digital and online philanthropy has been one of the most important examples of that. China has a dual regulatory framework, a regulatory framework that applies to Chinese organizations doing philanthropy or NGO work in China. That's the charity law framework in China. And a separate framework that applies to overseas organizations, foundations and others from outside China, Hong Kong, and other places like that, outside Chinese PRC borders. So it's these dual systems. And for the domestic system, that regulatory system is intended to both encourage giving and at the same time make sure that the giving process is highly regulated and significantly controlled. So China wants page. China wants to encourage giving, and giving is growing in China, decade by decade. At the same time, China does not want that giving to move into advocacy, does not want that giving to move into political activities. So we see both. We see growth and we see controls, and both of those are accomplished through the regulatory process. There's a lot of countries around the world that are particularly concerned about foreign funding coming in. And increasingly, many countries are regulating that process, foreign funding coming in, with higher and higher fences, higher and higher barriers. I can't speak to Peru, but I can speak to countries in Asia that I study, where those fences have often been high, and in some cases are getting high. At the same time, many places, China included, want to encourage domestic giving. As long as that giving is for social services, non-political activities, things like that. But the barriers to the outside giving in many, many countries have become higher over time. There's two main waves that are developed. One is that China is developing its own system of foreign aid. That's official development aid. And China is active as an aid or lender, actor around the world. In terms of philanthropy, which is what we're primarily talking about today, the leading actors of Chinese philanthropy moving outside China have been, for the most part, Chinese companies, where social investment, contributions to social activities, sometimes grants, sometimes projects, have followed the corporate activities abroad. As China has invested in manufacturing, as China has invested in big infrastructure projects like the port here in Peru. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes philanthropic activities, social activities have come along with those companies. It's still at a very early stage. As I was saying yesterday at the university, there's a need for much more research on this, much more case studies on what is actually happening in China's philanthropy. But those are the two big waves. And on the philanthropic side, it's the corporate side that is the leading wave. How that's going to play out in Peru, in other parts of Latin America, in other parts of the world is very hard to know right now, because we're really in the first 10 or 15 years of that development. It's really at a very early stage.